The kitchen clock's red digits glowed 11:47 p.m. when Sarah Miller heard the familiar creak of her 17-year-old son Tyler's bedroom door. Living in their modest two-story home in the quiet Highlands neighborhood of Denver, Colorado, she had grown accustomed to his nocturnal habits over the past 3 months, but tonight felt different. The October wind rattled the windows of their 1980s ranch-style home, carrying the scent of fallen leaves from the maple trees lining Elm Street. She sat at the kitchen table, nursing her third cup of Folgers coffee and scrolling through her iPhone, waiting. Her husband David was in Chicago on another business trip for his insurance company, leaving her to handle Tyler's increasingly strange behavior alone. Tyler appeared in the doorway, his tall, lanky frame silhouetted against the hallway light. His dark hair hung in his eyes, and he wore the same gray Denver Broncos hoodie he'd been wearing for days. Without acknowledging her presence, he moved to the refrigerator with mechanical precision, passing by the family photos on the wall that documented happier times. Tyler in his Jefferson High School soccer uniform, family vacations to Rocky Mountain National Park, his 8th grade graduation. "Tyler, honey," Sarah said softly, setting down her phone. "It's almost midnight again." He didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out leftover Chinese takeout from Golden Dragon, the family's favorite restaurant on Colfax Avenue where they used to go every Friday night, cold pizza from Tony's down the street, and a carton of Horizon organic milk. The fluorescent light above the kitchen island, the same one they'd installed during their kitchen renovation 5 years ago, cast harsh shadows across his pale face as he arranged the food on a paper plate. "Your father and I are worried about you," she continued, watching as he placed the plate in the microwave. "You haven't eaten with us in months. You barely leave your room except for school." The microwave hummed, filling the silence. Tyler stood perfectly still, his back to her, waiting. Sarah noticed how his shoulders had become more pronounced, how his clothes seemed to hang looser on his frame. When had he gotten so thin? "I found the letter from Mrs. Henderson," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your guidance counselor at Jefferson High. About your grades dropping from A's to D's. About you falling asleep in AP chemistry, the class you used to love." The microwave beeped 3 times. Tyler retrieved his plate, the steam rising from the reheated food, and sat at the far end of the kitchen table. He began eating slowly, methodically, as if following some internal script. "Tyler, please talk to me," Sarah pleaded, leaning forward. "What's happening to you?" He paused mid-bite, his fork halfway to his mouth, and for a moment, Sarah thought he might actually respond. But then he continued eating, his movements robotic, his eyes focused on something she couldn't see. The refrigerator's ice maker hummed and dropped cubes into the tray with a familiar clatter. The antique wall clock David had bought at a garage sale in Littleton ticked steadily. Outside, a neighbor's German shepherd barked once, then fell silent. The Hernandez family next door probably left their porch light on again. Sarah watched her son eat his midnight meal in their kitchen that had once been filled with laughter and family conversations, wondering when she had lost him and how to bring him back. The next morning, Sarah found herself sitting in the waiting room of Dr. Patricia Chen's office in the Cherry Creek Medical District, a family therapist recommended by Tyler's school counselor. The office was located in a modern glass building near the upscale shopping center, and through the windows, she could see the Denver skyline and the snow-capped Rocky Mountains in the distance. The walls were painted a calming beige, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. She clutched a manila folder containing Tyler's school records from Jefferson High, his report cards, and printouts of emails from concerned teachers, her hands trembling slightly as she sipped a Starbucks latte that had long since gone cold. "Mrs. Miller?" Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Her office walls were decorated with her diplomas from University of Colorado and certifications from the American Family Therapy Academy. "Please, come in." Sarah followed her into the office, which was filled with warm lighting and comfortable furniture. She took a seat on the couch, feeling suddenly overwhelmed. "Tell me about Tyler," Dr. Chen said, settling into her chair with a notepad. He's not the same boy," Sarah began, her voice catching. "3 months ago, He was the starting midfielder on Jefferson High's varsity soccer team. They were ranked third in the Colorado 5A division. He had friends over every weekend, kids from the soccer team, his debate club friends. He was excited about applying to CU Boulder for engineering. He talked about his future constantly. Dr. Chen nodded encouragingly. What changed? I don't know. It started gradually. He began sleeping later, skipping meals with us. But then… Sarah paused, remembering the first time she'd witnessed what she now called the staring. 2 weeks ago, I found him in the living room at 2 a.m. He was sitting on the couch, completely still, staring at the wall above the fireplace. Not blinking, not moving. I called his name, touched his shoulder, but he didn't respond. It was like he was in a trance. Dr. Chen leaned forward. How long did this last? 23 minutes. I timed it. Then suddenly, he blinked, stood up, and went to his room like nothing had happened. Has this happened again? Sarah nodded, tears forming in her eyes. Every night since. Always after his midnight meal. He finishes eating, then finds a wall somewhere in the house and just stares. Last night, it was the kitchen wall. The night before, the hallway. Always a different wall. Dr. Chen made notes, her expression thoughtful. Has Tyler experienced any trauma recently? A death in the family, a breakup, academic pressure? Nothing that I know of. His father and I have been trying to think of triggers, but Tyler won't talk to us. He barely acknowledges we exist. What about his friends? Have you spoken with them? Sarah shook her head. They stopped coming around months ago. When I asked Tyler about it, he just said they were busy with their own lives. Dr. Chen set down her pen. Mrs. Miller, I'd like to see Tyler as soon as possible. What you're describing could be several things: severe depression, a dissociative disorder, or even something neurological. But we need to get him in here to make any kind of assessment. He won't come. I've tried. Then we'll have to find a way to make him want to come. That evening, Sarah's husband David returned from his business trip to Chicago to find his wife pacing the living room of their Highlands home, her iPhone pressed to her ear. The room was decorated with family photos and Tyler's soccer trophies on the mantel, remnants of happier times. The leather sectional sofa they'd bought at Denver Mattress Company 3 years ago now felt like a symbol of normalcy that had been lost. I understand, but this can't wait until next week, she was saying, her voice strained. My son is exhibiting behavior that's concerning. David set down his American Tourister suitcase and raised his eyebrows in question. Sarah held up a finger, continuing her conversation with what sounded like someone from Presbyterian/St. Joseph Hospital's Behavioral Health Department. Okay, yes, I'll call if it gets worse. Thank you. She hung up and turned to David, who immediately noticed the dark circles under her eyes and the way her hands shook slightly. What's going on, Sarah? You look like you haven't slept in days. I haven't. David, something's really wrong with Tyler. More wrong than we thought. David loosened his Brooks Brothers tie, settling into his favorite lazy boy recliner, the one Tyler used to curl up in when he was younger to watch Denver Broncos games with his dad. Tell me everything. Sarah filled him in on the midnight meals, the staring episodes, her visit to the therapist. David listened without interruption, his expression growing more concerned with each detail. Where is he now? David asked when she finished. In his room. He came home from school 3 hours ago and hasn't come out since. As if on cue, they heard Tyler's door creak open. Sarah grabbed David's arm. It's starting, she whispered. They watched from the living room as Tyler descended the stairs, his movements deliberate and slow. He was wearing different clothes, a white t-shirt and jeans, but his demeanor remained the same. Vacant, distant. Tyler, David called out, standing up. Son, we need to talk. Tyler paused at the bottom of the stairs, his head turning slightly toward his father, but his eyes remained unfocused. For a moment, David thought he saw a flicker of recognition, but it passed quickly. "I know you can hear me," David continued, approaching slowly. "Your mom told me about the midnight dinners. We're worried about you." Tyler continued toward the kitchen without responding. David followed, Sarah close behind. They watched as Tyler repeated his ritual, retrieving food from the refrigerator, heating it up, sitting at the table. "This is incredible," David whispered to Sarah. "It's like he's sleepwalking, but his eyes are open." "Wait," Sarah said, gripping his arm tighter. "Watch what happens when he finishes eating." Tyler consumed his meal with the same mechanical precision Sarah had described. When he was done, he stood up, leaving his plate on the table, and walked to the kitchen wall, the one with the small window above the sink. He positioned himself directly in front of the wall and began to stare. David approached cautiously. "Tyler? Son?" No response. Tyler's eyes were wide open, unblinking, focused on a point about 5 feet up the wall. David waved his hand in front of Tyler's face. "Nothing." He snapped his fingers. "Nothing." "My God," David breathed. "How long does this last?" "Usually about 20 minutes. Sometimes longer." David studied his son's face, noting the complete absence of expression, the way his breathing had become slow and rhythmic. "Sarah, this isn't just depression or teenage angst. Something's seriously wrong." "I know." "The therapist wants to see him, but he won't go." "He'll go," David said firmly. "Even if I have to carry him there myself." The next morning was Saturday, and Sarah had barely slept. She stood at the kitchen window, watching their neighbors the Johnsons load their Honda Pilot for what looked like a family ski trip to Vail. Tom Johnson waved from his driveway, and Sarah managed a weak wave back. Normal families doing normal things. She envied their simplicity, their uncomplicated Saturday morning routine. David appeared beside her, already dressed and holding his Ford Explorer keys. "I called in a favor with Jim Patterson. You remember him from the insurance office? His wife works at Presbyterian/St. Joseph. Dr. Chen agreed to make a house call." Sarah turned to him, surprised. "She'll come here." I explained the situation. "She's bringing someone with her, a neurologist. They'll be here in an hour." "What about Tyler?" "Leave that to me." An hour later, Dr. Chan arrived with Dr. Michael Rodriguez, a soft-spoken man in his 40s who specialized in adolescent neurology at Children's Hospital Colorado. Sarah led them through the foyer with its family photos documenting Tyler's childhood, Little League baseball, Boy Scout camping trips, middle school graduation, to the living room where David was already waiting. "Where's Tyler?" Dr. Chen asked. "Still in his room," David replied. "He hasn't come out since yesterday's episode." Dr. Rodriguez opened his medical bag. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller, I need you to understand that without Tyler's cooperation, our options are limited. But based on what Dr. Chen has told me, I'm concerned about the possibility of a neurological condition." "What kind of condition?" Sarah asked, her voice tight. "The staring episodes you've described could be a form of seizure activity, sometimes called absence seizures or complex partial seizures. They can be triggered by stress, sleep deprivation, or other factors." David frowned. "But he's not shaking or convulsing." "Not all seizures look like what you see in movies," Dr. Rodriguez explained. "Some are much more subtle. The midnight eating, the repetitive behaviors, the staring, these could all be part of a seizure pattern." At that moment, they heard Tyler's door open. Sarah's heart raced as footsteps descended the stairs. But instead of heading to the kitchen, Tyler appeared in the living room doorway. He looked different today, more alert, more present. His eyes moved from his parents to the two strangers, confusion flickering across his face. "Mom!" His voice was hoarse, as if he hadn't used it in days. Who are these people? Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes. It was the first time he'd spoken to her in weeks. Tyler, honey, these are doctors. They're here to help us understand what's been happening to you. Tyler's brow furrowed. What's been happening to me? Dr. Chen stepped forward gently. Tyler, I'm Dr. Chen. Do you remember eating dinner at midnight? Do you remember staring at walls? Tyler's expression shifted to one of genuine confusion. What? No, I don't. He looked at his parents. What time is it? It's 2 in the afternoon, David said softly. Saturday. Tyler's face paled. Saturday? But it was Wednesday. I was at school, and then… He pressed his palms against his temples. I don't remember anything after Wednesday. Dr. Rodriguez exchanged a meaningful glance with Dr. Chen. Tyler, I'd like to ask you some questions. Would that be okay? Tyler nodded slowly, still looking confused and frightened. Have you been having any headaches? Any strange tastes in your mouth? Any feelings of déjà vu or like you're watching yourself from outside your body? Tyler's eyes widened. Yes, all of those things. But I thought it was just stress from school. Tyler, Dr. Chen said gently, we think you might have been having seizures. That would explain why you don't remember the last few days. Tyler sank into a chair, his face going white. Seizures? But I never fell down or shook or anything. There are different types of seizures, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Some are very subtle. But the good news is, if that's what this is, it's treatable. Sarah moved to her son's side, placing a hand on his shoulder. For the first time in months, he didn't pull away. We're going to help you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. We're going to figure this out. 2 days later, Tyler found himself in the sterile environment of Presbyterian/St. Joseph Hospital's neurology department on the 3rd floor of the main building. Through the window, he could see the Denver Tech Center in the distance and the familiar outline of the Rocky Mountains. Electrodes were attached to his scalp for an EEG, and he lay still on the examination table while machines that looked like they belonged in a NASA control room monitored his brain activity. Sarah sat beside him in an uncomfortable hospital chair, holding his hand. The Tyler who had returned to them after Dr. Rodriguez's visit was different, more fragile, more frightened, but undeniably present in a way he hadn't been for months. She could smell the familiar hospital antiseptic that reminded her of when Tyler had broken his arm playing soccer in 8th grade. The good news, Dr. Rodriguez said, studying the printout from the EEG machine, is that we're seeing some abnormal electrical activity in your temporal lobe. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but it confirms our suspicions. Tyler squeezed his mother's hand. What does that mean? It means you've been having complex partial seizures. The midnight eating, the staring, the memory gaps, they're all part of seizure activity. Your brain was essentially going on autopilot during these episodes. David, who had been pacing by the window that overlooked the hospital parking lot where their Honda Accord sat among dozens of other cars belonging to worried families, stopped and turned around. But why did it start? Tyler's never had seizures before. Sometimes these things are triggered by severe stress, sleep deprivation, or hormonal changes, Dr. Rodriguez explained. Tyler, can you think of anything that might have been particularly stressful around the time this started? Tyler was quiet for a long moment, his eyes focused on the acoustic ceiling tiles that were probably installed in the 1990s. There was something, but I don't know if it's related. What was it, honey? Sarah asked gently. You remember my friend Marcus Rodriguez? He was in my AP chemistry class with Mr. Peterson. Sarah nodded. Marcus had been Tyler's best friend since they met in 6th grade at McAuliffe International School. His family had moved to Denver from Phoenix when his father got a job with Lockheed Martin. He He died in a car accident on I-25 near the tech center. 3.5 months ago. Some drunk driver ran a red light at the Quebec Street intersection. The funeral was at St. Francis Delaware Sales Catholic Church. Tyler's voice broke. I couldn't handle it. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I kept thinking about how random it was, how it could happen to anyone, how we'd just been texting about the chemistry test the night before. Sarah felt her heart clench. Tyler, why didn't you tell us? I didn't want to make it about me. His parents were destroyed. I felt like I didn't have the right to be upset. Dr. Rodriguez nodded knowingly. Grief can be a powerful trigger for seizures, especially in adolescence. The sleep deprivation and stress you experienced likely created the perfect storm for seizure activity to begin. So what happens now? David asked. We start Tyler on anti-seizure medication. It may take some time to find the right dosage, but most people with this type of epilepsy respond very well to treatment. Tyler sat up, looking alarmed. Epilepsy? I have epilepsy. It's not as scary as it sounds, Dr. Rodriguez reassured him. Many people with epilepsy live completely normal lives. The key is finding the right medication and managing stress levels. What about school? Sports? Can I still play soccer? We'll take it one step at a time. Once we get your seizures under control, we can discuss returning to your normal activities. Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. For the first time in months, there was hope. There's something else, Tyler said quietly. I keep having these flashes of memory, like fragments of the things I did during the episodes. It's really disturbing. That's normal, Dr. Rodriguez said. Some people with complex partial seizures retain fragments of memory from their seizures. It can be unsettling, but it's not harmful. I remember staring at the walls, Tyler continued. But in the memories, it wasn't just staring. It was like I was searching for something, like there was something important I was supposed to see. Dr. Rodriguez made a note. The brain during a seizure can create very vivid and meaningful seeming experiences, but they're not based in reality. Tyler nodded, but Sarah could see he was still troubled by the memories. We're going to get through this, she said, squeezing his hand again. As a family. 3 weeks after starting medication, Tyler sat in Dr. Chen's office in the Cherry Creek Medical District for his first official therapy session. The anti-seizure medication, Keppra, which he had to take twice daily with food, had been working. No more midnight meals, no more staring episodes. But the emotional work was just beginning. How are you feeling about everything? Dr. Chen asked, settling into her chair with her notepad. Tyler looked older somehow, more mature than his 17 years. Better. Physically, I mean. But I keep thinking about those 3 months. It's like someone else was living my life. That's a common feeling for people who've experienced what you have. You lost time, lost control. That can be very frightening. My parents keep apologizing, Tyler said. They think they should have figured it out sooner. But how could they? I didn't even know what was happening to me. Dr. Chen nodded. Guilt is normal for everyone involved. Your parents love you and want to protect you. When they couldn't, they felt helpless. I feel guilty too, Tyler admitted. About Marcus. About not dealing with his death better. Sometimes I wonder if I brought this on myself. Tyler, grief is not a choice. How your brain and body responded to losing your best friend wasn't something you could control. The seizures weren't your fault. Tyler was quiet for a moment, staring out the window at the Denver skyline where the Wells Fargo building and Republic Plaza stood tall against the backdrop of the Rockies. I miss him. I miss who I was before he died. I miss feeling like the world made sense. Tell me about Marcus. What was he like? Tyler's face softened. He was the kind of person who made everyone laugh. Even when things were bad, he could find something funny about it. He used to joke that he was going to be a stand-up comedian instead of going to college. It sounds like he brought a lot of joy to your life. He did. And when he died, it was like all the joy went with him. I couldn't understand how the world could keep going, how people could still order coffee at Starbucks, how the RTD buses kept running, how Jefferson High kept having classes, when someone that good was gone. Dr. Chen leaned forward. Tyler, what do you think Marcus would want for you now? Tyler considered this. He'd want me to be happy. He'd probably make fun of me for being so dramatic about everything. A small smile crossed his face. He always said I was too serious. Do you think you're ready to start letting some happiness back in? Tyler nodded slowly. I think so. I want to try, anyway. I want to get back to being myself. That's going to take time. And it's okay if you're not the exact same person you were before. Grief changes us. But that doesn't mean the change has to be all negative. My parents want me to go back to Jefferson High full-time next week. I've been doing half-days with home tutoring through the district's program. I'm nervous about it. What are you nervous about? People asking where I've been. What they'll think if they find out about the seizures. I don't want to be the weird kid who had a breakdown. Dr. Chen smiled. You might be surprised by how understanding people can be. And you don't owe anyone an explanation beyond what you're comfortable sharing. Coach Martinez called yesterday. He wants to know if I'll consider rejoining the Jefferson High Jaguars for the spring season. They're doing winter conditioning at the rec center on Sheridan. How does that make you feel? Tyler thought for a moment. Scared. But also excited? Soccer was something Marcus and I did together. Maybe it's time to do it for myself. That sounds like a healthy step forward. Tyler stood up, gathering his jacket. Dr. Chen, do you think I'll ever stop missing him? No, Tyler. I don't think you will. But I think you'll learn to carry that missing in a way that honors his memory without destroying your own life. Tyler nodded, a look of understanding crossing his face. I think I can live with that. 6 months later, Tyler stood on the soccer field at Jefferson High School, the familiar view of the Rocky Mountains visible beyond the school's red brick buildings. The spring Colorado sun warmed his face as he looked out at the field where he and Marcus had spent countless hours practicing free kicks and corner shots. He'd been back on the Jaguars for 2 months now, and while his endurance wasn't quite what it used to be, he was getting stronger every day. Sarah and David sat in the aluminum bleachers they'd sat in for dozens of Tyler's games over the years, watching their son warm up with his teammates. The transformation had been gradual but remarkable. Tyler was laughing with Jake Morrison and Carlos Gutierrez, kids he'd known since elementary school, his movements confident and natural. Remember when we thought we'd lost him forever? Sarah said, her voice soft with emotion. David reached over and took her hand. He's not the same boy he was before all this happened. No, he's not, Sarah agreed. He's stronger. On the field, Tyler's teammate Jake passed him the ball. Tyler dribbled it expertly, then passed it back with a grin. The casual normalcy of the moment would have seemed impossible just months ago. After practice, Tyler jogged over to his parents, his face flushed with exertion and happiness. Good practice? David asked. The best, Tyler replied. Coach Martinez thinks I might be ready for varsity again by fall. The 5A division is tough, but he thinks I have a shot at getting a scholarship to Colorado State or maybe even CU. That's wonderful, honey, Sarah said, noting how clear and present Tyler's eyes looked. The medication had eliminated the seizures, but more importantly, Tyler had learned to live with his grief in a healthy way. I'm going to grab dinner with some of the guys at Chipotle on Colfax, Tyler said. Jake's driving. Is that okay? Of course, Sarah said. Just be home by 10. Tyler kissed his mother's cheek and headed off to join his friends near the Honda Civic that Jake had gotten for his 16th birthday. Sarah watched him go, marveling at how different this scene was from the midnight meals and staring episodes that had nearly torn their family apart. You know what I realized, she said to David as they walked to their car. What's that? We never asked Tyler what he thought he was looking for when he stared at those walls. David paused, considering this. Does it matter now? Sarah thought about it. Maybe not. Maybe some questions don't need answers. As they drove home in their Honda Accord, taking the familiar route through the Highlands neighborhood, Tyler was at the Chipotle on Colfax with his friends, eating a normal meal at a normal time, laughing at jokes about their chemistry teacher Mr. Peterson and making plans for the weekend. The walls around him were just walls, decorated with the restaurant's typical industrial design and motivational posters, not objects of fascination or compulsion, but simply part of the background of a life lived in the present. He still missed Marcus. He probably always would. But he'd learned something important through his journey. Grief didn't have to be a prison. It could be a bridge, a way to carry love forward instead of letting it drag you backward. That night, Tyler ate dinner with his family at 7 p.m., just like they used to. And when he went to bed at 11 p.m., he slept peacefully until morning, dreaming of soccer games and bright futures and the friend who would always be part of his story, even if he was no longer part of his daily life. The midnight meals were over. The staring episodes were behind them. Tyler Miller had found his way back to the world of the living, and he was never letting go again.